Blog Talk Radio.
Hello everyone, this is Lori Smith on Blog Talk Radio. Good morning. It is Saturday morning, 11 o'clock a.m. here, Calgary, Alberta, August the 14th. I'm happy to be here. This is Worldwide Epidemic of Child Abuse and Human Rights Abuses, and it's a 30-minute live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com. And I'm glad to be able to do these shows, glad to be here, and just looking around this morning at what's going on around the world, regarding, child abuse and human rights abuses. And of course, we could talk about this, whole networks and radio and television and newspapers are doing exactly that. But I just wanted to cover one show a week because I do fight for child rights. I stand up against abuse. And so I wanted to do an international type show, instead of just focusing nationally, on North American the issues in North America, Canada, the United States, and whatnot, regarding human rights abuses and child abuse especially, right? So, that's why I'm doing these shows. I just wanted to be sort of talk a little bit about what I see out there as far as the worldwide epidemic of child abuse and human rights abuses, and just talk a little bit about it. My focus is right now national, but I hope to be international at some point. I just, it's just in my heart to do this, and that's what I plan on doing for the rest of my life. So that's why I wanted to at least include one show a week, regarding the whole worldwide issue. So I'm glad you can be here and tune in. Thanks so much for everybody for tuning into my shows. I can't believe so many people have been listening to my shows, and some people I do know and others that I don't. And I just thank you all for taking the time to listen to me ramble on and on about child abuse and prevention of child abuse and my own personal issues with child abuse, and day in and day out. Thank you so much for being here for me, and I really appreciate it. This morning I wanted to take a look at an article I found of Human Rights Watch, and that's www.hrw.org, and it's an article called CAR/DR Congo. LRA conducts massive abduction campaign, and new regional strategy needed to protect civilians and rescue children. Excuse me, this is from August 11th, this recent post here. It says, Washington, D.C., the Ugandan Rebel Lords Resistance Army, the LRA, has abducted more than 697 adults and children in a largely unreported campaign in the Central African Republic and the neighboring Bas-Ula district of Northern Democratic Republic of Congo. Over the last 18 months, Human Rights Watch said today, so that's almost 700 people, right? Adults and children. So nearly one-third of those abducted have been children, and many of whom are being forced to serve as soldiers or are being used for sex by the group's fighters. And during the abduction campaign, the LRA has brutally killed adults and children who tried to escape, walked too slowly, or were unable to carry the heavy loads they were forced to carry. Human Rights Watch found in its investigations in the region, the LRA has killed at least 255 adults and children, often by crushing their skulls with clubs. And in dozens of cases, the LRA forced captive children to kill other children and adults, right? The LRA continues its horrific campaign to replenish its ranks by brutally tearing children from their villages and forcing them to fight, said Anneke van Woudenberg, senior Africa researcher at Human Rights Watch. And the evidence points to Joseph Kony, the LRA leader, as the author of this atrocious campaign, quote unquote, she says here, or whoever that person is. Human Rights Watch called on the affected governments and their allies to strengthen their protection of civilians and to put greater emphasis on efforts to rescue the abducted children and others. And a month-long Human Rights Watch research mission to the Central African Republic and the Bas-Ula district of northern Congo from July 12th to August 11th, 2010, in which over 520 civilians were interviewed, including 90 former abductees, in individual and focus group interviews, found that the LRA's abduction campaign was similar in both countries and is having a devastating impact on affected communities. And in southeastern CAR, the LRA began large-scale abductions on July 21st, 2009, and to date has abducted 304 people, including many children. The LRA first attacked the villages surrounding Obo before moving west toward Refe, Guarakindo, Guyanga, Kitesa, and Maboki, along the Congolese border, and north toward Djema, Barua, and Derbisaka. And most recently, on June 12th and 13th, 2010, the LRA abducted 16 people in farms surrounding the town of Refe, including a mother and her 2-year-old daughter, both of whom the rebels later killed. And a similar LRA abduction campaign is underway in the remote Basula district of Congo. On March 15, 2009, the LRA attacked the town of Banda, abducting some 80 people. In the months that followed, the LRA progressed westward, conducting raids on the towns and villages of Dakwa, Bayula, Tisolo, Esse, and further north in Digba, Sukari, and Gwain, and many others. So, this is absolutely horrible. Like this Lord's Resistance Army, I mean, this is absolutely crazy. And sadly enough, who in the whole continent of Africa and all those different countries, especially the Congo, are powerful enough to take those guys down. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous what they're doing to these people and what they're doing to these children. This is quite a lengthy article, and I hope that you will check it out. From Human Rights Watch. That's www.hrw.org. So they're not only taking men, they're taking boys, they're taking women, they're taking children. They're, if they're forcing to be either to be soldiers or just to be sex slaves or just to be pack animals, carrying all the stuff, carrying the gear, and then if they can't keep up or they can't, do what they're expecting them to do, they just kill them, right? Or if they try to run away or escape, they kill them. I mean, this is horrible, and this is like 2010. I mean, this is like not 1500 BC. It just bothers me that today we don't have the power to, as a world, with all the people out there who are doing a great job to try to stop this mess, that we don't have the power to stop these people, and because right behind them, as soon as we stop those people, there'll be somebody else coming up, as Hitler, or whether it's, whoever, you know what I mean? There's always going to be some crazy psycho who gets a whole bunch of people to follow them because of what they can offer them, whether it's protection, food, security, a little bit of money, goods, people, sex, whatever they can get, to give to these people who have absolutely nothing. These people will follow them and do what they say, and out of fear. And then, of course, now they're getting a hold of boys and young children and girls even, and making them kill and making them do these horrific acts against people. And these children grow up like that, they're ripped from their homes and sometimes made to kill their parents, and then they, or even community members, right? And then they get kidnapped, taken off, and they're either sex slaves or they're just made to fight, made to kill. And then they have to try to, if they get rescued. I actually talked to a man who knows a lot about this from Sudan, who was one of the lost boys, and just here in Calgary. And this was about a year and a half ago. But I talked to him, and he was talking to me about the seriousness of all this. He says then when they do get help, these children, they have to try to overcome what they've done. Because they know that they've murdered people. They know that they killed people because somebody told them to, because they feared for their life. And if they didn't do what those people told them, they'd be killed, and they made the wrong decision. Well, of course, what can you say is the right or wrong decision for these, 9, 10-year-old kids, right? Being forced to hold a gun and shoot somebody, a rifle or something, or a machine gun and shoot people down, or club them, or kill them, or stab them, right? And if they don't do it, they'll be killed. So they're standing there with this weapon, and it's sort of the fight to survive. Right? These kids, obviously they don't want to go around killing people, and yet they probably hate themselves because of what they did, because they didn't just let themselves be killed in order to not kill somebody else. So, I try to put myself into these people's shoes, and that's what we all have to do, right? Because this is serious. These are kids, these are children. And, I don't care if they live like across the world, on another continent. It makes no difference to me. The whole issue is these are children, and it's really unfortunate this is happening to them. We see this sort of the same thing in a gang situation here in North America. It's a little different. They join these gangs, but some of them are, sort of pressured into it by peers and by family members to get involved in these gangs. And then if they don't do what these gang members say, they're quite often brutalized or killed, or they just disappear. Nobody knows what happened to them. It's really sad. So it is going on all around the world. It's not just in Africa. It's not just in other places. I mean, it's going on all around the world, but it's just so brutal because there's no laws over there in Africa. You know what I mean? All those countries, like there's 52 countries or something in Africa, and they're just, the situation over there is just a mess, and it has been for so long. How do you fix that? Well, I say education. Really, education is the way to fix that. But and so many people agree with me, and I know this. And it's only because I'm agreeing with some other people that made the statement that education is the key, and I do believe that 100%. But in the meantime, kids are suffering. Kids are being used for sexual purposes. They're just they're just sex objects for these rebels. And that makes me sick. And that's wrong, and I don't care. That was going on back in the days of the Romans, and that's still going on 2010. What is going on? You know what I mean? Like, as a society, as a world population, we all got to get upset about that and do something about that. No child is a sex toy. I'm sorry, but they're not. They're not a sex object. They're not for adults' sexual use. Now, I don't know why and where the lines got crossed, you know what I mean, with these sick people. And then even today, 2010, 1,000 years later, 2,000 years later, they're still doing it. And why? I don't know. Pure evil. Pure evil. That's all I can call those people. And I hope that hey, I believe in God and I believe in His judgment, and I believe that He's going to judge harshly. And I hope so, right? It makes me sick, and we have to do something. And if we stand by and don't say anything, we are basically saying, "Oh, it doesn't matter to me. It's okay." What we don't speak out against, we are actually saying, "Okay." Like, if we don't say that's not right. If you know about something and you don't speak out against it, and you know about all this worldly stuff going on, child abuse, human rights abuses, women's rights issues, and even abused men, right? If we don't speak out against it, basically what we're saying is that it's okay, no problem. You know what I mean? So what's wrong with people? What's wrong with us as a world population? And what's wrong with people that came before us and those people that came before them, and and the next generations that come? We really have to stop this. We really have to do something to make this world a better place, right, for children, right? And I'm mainly speaking about children because, children have no rights. They have no voice unless we stand up for them. They have no, and children do have rights, believe it or not. You just have to check out the UN's Charter, Convention of Child Rights, and start looking around to see that children do have rights, and that children are not to be used and abused and mistreated in any way, shape, or form. So it is my hope to see some huge changes in my lifetime. I really want so badly to see some awesome changes being done. And I'm talking a worldwide explosion of advocates out there, everybody getting involved and standing up and saying, no, it's not right. We have to do something about this. Let's change it. Let's get the programs in place here in North America. Let's, and focus on our own country, get our own country straightened up. And, thousands upon tens of thousands of children in North America are abused every single day, and quite a few are killed. And if they're not killed, they're just, in the hospital due to abuse-related injuries, and they will suffer their whole entire lives because of the abuse they suffer, But worldwide, you think about the whole worldwide issue of child abuse and human rights abuses, and it's so huge that no one knows what to do about it, because it's what's in people's hearts. What's causing these parents to abuse their children is what's going on in their hearts. It has really nothing to do with what the child is doing. The child could be sitting there minding its own business, but because the parent or the caregiver or the child sexual predator has something in their heart that they want to do to that child, they do it. Right? No child deserves to be beaten and abused and sexually abused and mistreated and verbally abused and emotionally mistreated. No child. So anywhere around the world. So that just goes worldwide, right? And yet, what's in these people's hearts that they would treat these children like this and little babies? Evil, pure evil. A lack of empathy, a lack of human qualities. That's what I like to say. People that can hurt a child like that on purpose and then not care. It's one thing to accidentally hurt a child, and you know what I mean, that's sad enough. And it's one thing to see a child suffering from a disease, that they didn't ask for, they didn't want, and they have. It's one thing to see a child suffering because they're disabled and they can't do what they want to do, and they can't, they're just hanging on to life by a thread. It's one thing to see that, it just breaks your heart. But then when you see a parent who is literally destroying their child, that just breaks my heart, because they have the option to not do that, and society has the option to get these children some help, and yet, why don't we? That's the biggest question. Why are we not helping these children? There's a lot of people out there trying, and so much of this stuff is not working. You know what I mean? So many of the programs that we're pumping billions of dollars into are not working, you know. And so we have to, as a society and as a world, come up with come up with the answers for these children today, tomorrow, the next day. You know what I mean? And it's just sad. And I'm coming to you most people know who, if you're listening to my shows, that I'm a survivor. So I'm coming to you as an abused child, saying we have to find the answers so that no other child will have to suffer. And I mean, hey, I didn't suffer nearly what other people have suffered, and I know that just by reading the many survivor stories that I have and reading these headlines out, you know, on Dreamcatchers Talk Radio, here on Blog Talk Radio and whatnot. You know, it's so absolutely disturbing to me that people are doing this to their children, and growing up in the home that I did and witnessing what I saw and trying to live with what I experienced. I know firsthand, you know, the evil and the hatred in people's hearts. That's what causes people to do this stuff. And so, and a lot of people say, well, it's ignorance. Well, that has a lot to do with it. My parents were very ignorant, and but they were also very hateful and evil people, right? Now, some people would disagree and say, oh, no, they were lovely, and we loved them. And sure they did. They didn't care that they kicked the crap out of their kids and beat on their children and ruined their lives. There were so many people that could have intervened and could have done something, you know, and they didn't. And that's wrong. It's wrong to not help a child when you know that there's problems in the home, you know there's problems in a community, and we don't reach out and get some help for these people and for these children especially. You know, and if the parents can't do it, then somebody else needs to take over. And it has to be, you know, we know this whole foster care situation sucks. There's some good foster parents out there, I'm sure of it, but there's also some foster parents that aren't. And they're just continuing on the abuse because they're just abusers. So, you know, you think about what we're going to do in our own country, and then you think about the whole worldwide issue, and it's just like, whoa, do we ever have a lot of work to do? And we got to get started. You know, we have to get on this like now. And I'm so thankful for all the people out there that are doing anything that they can, like, you know, World Vision. We're talking to UN. I don't care, anybody with any of these groups. I follow them all, actually. I mean, I have huge hundreds, and I mean, I got major links and resources coming in every day regarding who's doing what around the world, right? And I'm so thankful for these people that are doing this, you know, and to stand up for these children around the world. And I'm so thankful for the people in this country of Canada and this country of North America and the United States, this continent, you know, that people are doing what they're doing to stop child abuse and to help children. I am so thankful, and that's why I just want to be one more voice. But I kind of, you know, I like to be a voice for the voiceless. I like to speak out for those who can't do it. Because I can. I don't mind saying this stuff. It doesn't bother me to say this. As a matter of fact, it bothers me not to say it. I think about sometimes taking a little break from my shows, and then I can't do it. And, you know, I miss the odd show here and there, sleeping in and whatnot accidentally. But mainly, you know, I try to be here for my shows because this is what I want to do for the rest of my life, is speak out against this stuff and make a worldwide impact. You know, I don't necessarily just want to be involved in a child's life. You know, trying to help a child. I don't want to just affect one life. I want to be the voice that's out there for the whole world to hear. Just like Nicole Kidman, just like all those people who are using their voice and using what they have and their resources and their time and their influence try to get the message out, right? And so I'm just doing it in my own way right now as much as I can, and I wouldn't mean anything if nobody was listening. So that's why, you know, I just thank everybody who's tuning into all my shows. But this is just so incredibly important that we all ask ourselves, how are we going to do this? How are we going to stop this? How are we going to help people it has to start within the home. It has to start with ourselves. You know, it would have to start with the Lord's Resistance Army. All those guys would have to start thinking about what they're doing. Take a good, long, hard look at what their goal is in this and why they are killing and maiming and torturing and hurting people. And then they have to put down the guns and stop doing what they're doing. You know what I mean? It was just like my parents. My parents, if they really were good people, then they would not have done what they did. They would have turned to each other and they would have said, husband, I love you, and the husband would have said, wife, I love you. I'm so sorry for what I've done to you. Look what we've done to our children. And they would have gathered us all around and they would have said, we are so sorry. How can we make this better? How can we as a family make this better. We obviously can't make up for what we've done and the pain that we've caused you. But how can we go forward with this and learn to love each other and learn to appreciate each other and not hurt each other and not hurt the children? But my parents didn't want to do that because their hearts were full of evil and full of anger and hatred. And that's what the Lord's Resistance Army's heart's full of, anger and hatred and evil. Otherwise they would not be clubbing people to death and bashing people's heads in, which is what my mom did to me. And people still today, my sister keeps the rolling pin as if it's some sort of trophy. The rolling pin that my mom beat my ass with in my head. She keeps this rolling pin because she loves it, because it belonged to my mother. Isn't that sweet? Look at Mom's rolling pin. It's so precious. It's like that rolling pin could have killed me. One more solid blow to my head could have been it. Lights out. This is how sick this makes me. Because my sister loves my mom and loves that rolling pin, that she would not even acknowledge the abuse that I suffered from my mother. Right? No. It makes no difference to her. And this is what makes me mad about the world, is that it makes no difference to the world, that people are clubbing people and killing children all around the world and using them for sexual purposes and just ruining their lives everywhere. And the verbal abuse, which cuts to the heart and cuts to this very core and the very soul of a child. That emotional and verbal and psychological abuse that goes on in families and everywhere around the world. It just cuts them down. And they will always have problems. Even if they heal and move forward, that stuff doesn't really ever go away, does it? It changes who you are. So, this just makes me sick that this is going on, and that's why I'm doing this. And I know so many people are out there. I know lots of advocates, and that's what I'm saying. I know tons and tons of people who are working every day, 24 hours, as much as they can stay awake, not 24 hours a day. Obviously, they can't stay awake 24 hours a day, but the thing is, they have to take a break and get some rest and eat and, do some laundry once in a while, too. But the main thing is they use what time they have and what time that they can and devote it to doing what they do to stop child abuse. And to me, that just means everything. Everything. And that's why I wanted to join forces. I wanted to join ranks with them. I thought, man, if I can do, what can I do with the rest of my life that will have any kind of meaning to me, any kind of purpose, any kind of, that would be worth a life, that would be worth living. It certainly isn't just hanging out. I did that for years. It's like we have a voice, we have the power within our words to help change this world and make it a better place for children, and for everyone. I mean, I'm standing up for human rights for all, right? Because I don't like to see anybody being abused, right? So, I mean, this is the whole issue. But it's mainly for the children. They don't deserve this. They have no voice, and they need us to be their voice, right? So this is so important that we do get on this. So I'll get back to this article. They said that a 40-year-old woman from Guaraquindo in southeastern CAR told Human Rights Watch how on March 29, 2010, she watched in horror as the LRA tied up her husband and 5 young children in a human chain, loaded them with the household's goods, and dragged them out of their home. She was left on her own with twin infants and has no news of her missing family members. So her family's been ripped from her, and she's just left on her own with these 2 babies, 2 twin infants. No word, no idea what's happened to her family, right? It says, according to former abductees, once away from the main road, the LRA forced their captives to work for hours or days shelling peanuts or pounding rice for cooking, right? Those who work too slowly are beaten. The LRA rebels prohibit captives from speaking to one another, from eating, drinking water, or going to the toilet without permission. Once the work is completed, some adults may be released, though they are usually viciously beaten or otherwise humiliated first. And in Digba, Basula, on September 27, 2009, the LRA whipped each of the 12 Congolese adult abductees with branches, then with a machete after they had worked all night shelling peanuts before releasing them. And a 41-year-old teacher in the group was punished more severely because he spoke English. And they said that adults who are not released may be kept as porters, forced to march at a rapid pace to the LRA's next location, heavily loaded with pillaged goods, and those who cannot keep up are killed. May 6th, the LRA killed a 42-year-old Central African man named Bungu near Mesquite in Car, who was loaded down with basins of peanuts and bags of rice. When he fell in a swamp area and was able to get up, the LRA combatant beat him on the head with a heavy wooden club, crushing his skull. See, I mean, and I see stuff like this, and it just makes me flash back to my mom beating my head with a heavy wooden rolling pin. Same exact thing. Evil and hatred in their hearts, you know what I mean? It just makes me sick that people do this kind of stuff to people. It just makes me angry. Adults who make it to an LRA camp are often killed instead of released, and one 12-year-old Congolese girl told Human Rights Watch that she was forced to participate in killing dozens of adults who had reached an LRA camp to prevent them from revealing its location to government soldiers or the Ugandan army. And the LRA tied the hands of the victims behind their back, a cord around their legs, placed the victims face down on the ground. Then she said, then the LRA would give us children a heavy wooden stick and force us to beat them on the head till they died. See what I'm saying? Like, this is 2010, not 1400 BC or 14,000 BC. I mean, come on. This is ridiculous. The world has to change. We just can't keep going along and saying, oh, it's too bad, we don't like what we see, but we're just going to be busy doing our own thing. Sorry, can't get involved. You know, I don't care. You know, for people that just have to be like that, well, whatever, to each their own. But, you know, for the rest of us that are standing up and doing something, I mean, right on, more power to us, right? Because this has to stop. This absolutely has to stop. It says, of the 45 children interviewed by Human Rights Watch, most of those who had been with the LRA a month or more had been forced to kill other children. Human Rights Watch received information of at least 42 children killed by other child abductees in 2009 and 2010. They made them kill other children. You know? I mean, this makes me sick. Many children are as young as 10 or 11, abducted in Congo, southern Sudan, 2008-2009, are now armed with guns and participate in LRA attacks. And it says, you know, witness to LRA attacks and those who were abducted, witnesses to the LRA attacks and those who were abducted told Human Rights Watch that the young LRA combatants are usually the most vicious and are ordered to carry out beatings and killings. And it's just absolutely ridiculous. Not good at all. So this is it. Children who escape are deeply traumatized by what they experienced, and that's what I was talking about earlier in the show when we first started. One 15-year-old boy who had spent 8 months with the LRA before he escaped told Human Rights Watch, I am no longer the same. I often think about how many people I killed, and then I can't sleep. I will never forget what they made me do. And I mean, there's books and stories about these people. They have these awesome stories going out there from these people who have gotten away from the LRA, and these young boys especially, and young girls, that telling their stories about how they were made to kill and how they got away and how their lives are now, because many of them were adopted into homes around the world, and you know, they're trying to get counseling and get therapy and stuff for what they were made to do and go through. And they said that it's such a hard existence because they will always have that in the back of their mind that they killed people, they hurt people, and so they feel very much sickened by it. Their life is never the same. Their innocence is lost, and they know that they cannot go back and take back what they did. It's something that they will never be able to recompense. You know. And that's just so sad. Like, they don't deserve that. Those children are just ripped from their homes, and they're told, if you don't do this, we'll kill you. So, I mean, this is the thing. It's so incredibly sad. So I thought this article was really worth looking at. So we have about a minute left. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in, and I'll be on tomorrow again with Mount Bethel Christian Worship and Fellowship. Just a Bible reading, really, Bible study. And I like to talk about what's going on in my life and in my heart, you know, and I love the Word of God, so I love the Bible. So, you know, you're welcome to join me. Monday morning, one child abuse survivor to another again, 6 o'clock a.m. Actually, it's probably going to be 7, just for the next week or two, because my hours at work changed. It gives me a chance to sleep in for another hour. It gives me a chance to sort of, you know, catch my breath a bit. So 7 o'clock a.m. Mountain Standard Time. And then Monday night, August 16th, don't miss it, Ray Luskin, 7 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. Change the show time for a special show with Ray Luskin. We're going to have an interview. We're going to talk to her, an hour-long program. She's going to bring us sort of present some healing and wholeness information for survivors of child abuse and for anybody who's suffering. I really hope that you will tune in. Ray Luskin, she's just awesome, and I did talk to her a while back on the phone, and we are so looking forward to this show. So I hope you will join us, 7 o'clock p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And then again, I'll be on Dreamcatchers Talk Radio with Elizabeth Brawley at 8 p.m. Or 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Dreamcatchers Talk Radio on Blog Talk Radio as well. and then my own, and then I won't have that later because I changed the time. So everybody, take care of yourselves. Have a great day. If you need any kind of resources or information that I can get for you, please get a hold of me, Blog Talk Radio or Facebook, and just take good care of yourselves. Be safe in all that you do, and have a great weekend. We'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.